Bonne Foi, Chapter 8. Not for the first time I pretended to sleep when Bella woke. I could smell her blush and feel the heat of it against my chest as she realized where she was. Carefully, as if I was made of stuff as delicate as she was, Bella disentangled herself from me and tiptoed into the kitchen. She wasn't quite successful. She stubbed her toe on the coffee table in the process. I got up and followed quietly after her, curious. I found her stretched up on her toes, rifling through my cabinets. My shirt that she wore was too short for the task, and her pert little bottom peeked out. It was too tempting a sight to resist, so I crept up behind her and placed my hands on her bare skin over her hips. With a squeak, she dropped the box of cereal she'd just retrieved. "You know," I murmured against her neck, "this strikes me as being very similar to a scenario you described last night." Her breath hitched and her little heart picked up its tempo. "Tell me," I said, drawing a finger along the skin beneath her navel, "do counters work as well as bookshelves for you?" "So far, yes," she breathed, leaning back into me. "Good." I spun her around to face me and hitched her up onto the countertop. The shirt rode up. Just like that, her damp sex was bared to me. Maybe I should move her into my apartment and make her walk around all the time in my shirts. I leaned in to kiss her, but before I reached her lips, she gasped and covered her mouth with her hand. "What's the matter?" I asked, confused at the abrupt change of pace. She'd been ready and willing just a second ago, still was, if the scent of her arousal was any proof. "Morning breath," she said from behind her hand. "What?" "I haven't brushed my teeth yet," she complained, still keeping her mouth covered. I rolled my eyes. "Bella, there's no way I'm going to be able to let you walk away from me, scantily clad as you are." "But—" I sighed and stroked my thumbs along her inner thighs, knowing how it would affect her. "I suppose we'll just have to kiss anywhere but the mouth, She smiled tentatively. "I suppose so." I leaned in again, and this time I aimed for that spot beneath her ear that made her crazy, sucking at the tender skin. Her thighs clenched around me, and I couldn't stop myself from pressing into her warmth. She was hot as fire, even through the thin layer of my boxers. I groaned into her neck and continued to taste the sweet skin there, deliciously close to the rush of blood beneath. God, I was thirsty. "Edward," she whimpered, wrapping her legs around me impatiently. I realized the need to distract myself and quickly freed myself from my boxers. I slipped easily into her slick sex. She was always so ready for me, and me alone, because she was mine, and her body had to know it. "Edward," she moaned this time, throwing her head back. My thrusts were slow and controlled, savoring every inch of her hot flesh around my cock. But that wasn't enough for her. "Faster," she begged, scraping her fingernails ineffectually against my shoulders. I drew her hips forward and used the new angle to obey her command. It rather amused me how demanding she could become when her inhibitions were down. She was probably a horny drunk. Now that would be fun to see. Bella bucked her hips impatiently. Evidently the pace still wasn't enough for her. I drove into her faster and faster until her head fell back and she moaned loudly. Moving as forcefully as I was, I thought I must surely be hurting her. Maybe she liked it, though. I'd never considered I might have found a masochist in Bella. Maybe she'd like to be spanked. I could just see her bent over in a little schoolgirl skirt. "Oh God, Edward," Bella suddenly cried, her orgasm sending her muscles quivering all around me. I let out a low growl as I let myself release to the images in my head. I hoped they'd one day come true. Bella slumped against me while she recovered, arms around my shoulders. She has finally begun to move again. I pulled away from her, smiling at the sight of her chaotic hair and desire-flushed cheeks. "I suppose I should let you have breakfast now," I murmured, arranging her and myself into something more presentable, or less tempting at least. I helped her down from the counter, because Lord knows she would manage to break a leg climbing down herself, and handed her the box of cereal she'd dropped. She blushed, and I handed her a bowl from the cabinet next to her head. "I'm curious, if you don't eat breakfast, why do you have cereal in your kitchen?" she asked, rattling the box in gesture. "For you, obviously," I said, leaning back against the counter to watch her move about the kitchen. "For me?" she said, stopping in her path to the refrigerator, looking at me with wide eyes. "You bought food just for me?" I shrugged. "I figured if you're going to be spending time here, I should probably feed you." Bella blushed, and a smile spread across her face. "Thank you, Edward. That's really sweet." There was that word again. I frowned and shrugged once more. When was she going to understand that these gestures were empty, that it was all to keep her in my bed? She would realize when I left her, I supposed. I shied away from that thought, uncomfortable with the way it made me feel. Maybe Bella was just overreacting. She'd said herself no one had ever really taken care of her before. Maybe that's why she saw so much significance in these things. She was pouring milk on her cereal now, oblivious to my pensive mood. "Where are the spoons?" she asked, as she put the cap back on the jug. "In here." I opened the drawer containing my recent purchased silverware and handed her one. "Thanks," she smiled, leaning back against the counter across from me as she began to eat. The silence quickly became uncomfortable for me. "What are your plans this week?" I finally asked. She pulled a face and swallowed quickly. "Well, I got the job at Java Break, so they want to train me all week. After that, they'll set my hours." I scowled. I disliked her job already, taking her away from me all week, just so that boy could moon over her. "What about next weekend?" "I promised my dad I'd come home to visit," she said, a look of sudden sadness taking over her expression. "I guess that means we won't be seeing much of each other for a while." I pursed my lips. Over a week without having her, when I already wanted her again this very instant. That wouldn't do. I quickly considered my options. Perhaps I could keep her here all week, and then at least I would have her nights. That was the important part anyway, but if she was here every night, I wouldn't be at liberty to hunt when I needed to, unless I did it while she was working. But maybe it was best to take some time away from her. I had come so close to biting her last night. Then again, her scent struck me harder the longer I was away from her. "We'll make time," I finally said, deciding it was better to keep things open. Maybe you could visit me at work some night," she ventured, looking up from under her lashes at me. That plan had merit. Perhaps I could take the opportunity to scare off her admirers when she wasn't looking. One dirty look would have that boy she worked with pissing his pants. Pathetic human. And then perhaps I could take her home with me. "Sounds like a plan," I decided, feeling a devious smile form on my face at the prospect. "Great," she said, smiling into her nearly finished cereal. I watched her finish eating and then washed the bowl and spoon in the sink. It was odd watching her do these human things that I hadn't done in decades. In fact, I don't think I'd ever washed a dish, even when I was human. She turned to me, biting her lip. I could use a shower. Do you want to?" I chuckled at her attempt. Well, at least she was making progress. "If you're asking if I'd like to join you, then yes." She blushed, of course. "This is all new to me. You shouldn't tease me so much." Now I really laughed. "Oh, but you're so funny when you're embarrassed. I can't help myself." She gave me a half-hearted slap to the chest, which probably hurt her more than it did me, and then she stalked off to the bathroom. I followed, of course. Bella ignored me while she whipped off the shirt she wore and stepped into my shower. She nearly slammed the glass door behind her, and I stood outside for a moment, watching the show. The glass wasn't frosted, allowing me to see every detail as she turned on the water and rivulets ran down her body. She kept ignoring me. It wasn't long before my erection was hard enough that I felt the need to shed my boxers and sneak in behind her. Bella stiffened when the door shut behind me. "I'm still mad at you," she said, keeping her back to me. "Keep your claws in, kitten," I chuckled, pressing close to her. "Just because I tease you doesn't mean I don't think you're sexy as hell." She shivered as I placed my hands on her hips. "Really? Haven't you noticed I can't keep my hands off you?" I whispered into her ear. She leaned back into me, with a sigh, giving in. I pushed her hair aside and licked a drop of water from her neck. It was flavored with her essence. She hummed in pleasure. "Edward?" She leaned her head back into my shoulder to look at me. "Yes?" "I'm glad I met you," she said with a soft smile. I didn't know what to reply, but she was waiting for an answer. "So am I said finally. I had to give Bella back to her roommate after our long shower. The rest of the day was boring. The same things I'd been doing to entertain myself for years just didn't hold much appeal now. It was the novelty of having Bella, I supposed. Once that wore off, things would return to normal. When darkness finally fell, I went to Seattle again. My near miss with Bella last night had me questioning my diet again. It was abundantly clear to me that animal blood would not sustain me the way human blood did. I hadn't been so thirsty less than a week after feeding since the 1930s. Apparently my body used animal blood faster than human blood, and it wasn't nearly as satisfying, not nearly as soothing to the burn in my throat. I would try again and I would succeed. I refused to even consider the possibility of a repeat of my last two failures. I was a vampire, and vampires were built to drink human blood. There was no reason why I shouldn't be able to enjoy my natural food source unhindered. I decided to take it slow, no need to rush. I would wait for something truly appetizing, which could be hard for a well-aged vampire to find. Feeding became a chore after so many years. Most vampires found their own way to spice things up. Some looked for a challenge, a chase to keep them occupied. Others sought different flavors, rare flavors. I, in turn, had taken on different roles over the years. When my insatiable newborn thirst finally allowed for some higher reasoning, I went after criminals, fancying myself the bearer of justice to a corrupt world. That naive illusion wore off quickly, and I soon saw that I was nothing more than an animal fulfilling my needs, no more human than the men I slaughtered. I had moved on to different types as the years passed. I'd had my fun with cheating spouses in the 40s, overly hormonal teenagers in the 50s, hippies in the 60s, people hopped up on various illegal substances in the 70s and 80s. I would never feed off someone on LSD ever again, and corrupt businessmen and women in the 90s. I had manipulated all kinds of minds and found them all equally boring. Lately, I'd been playing with damsels in distress, but Bella had been an unexpected twist in that game. I thought perhaps I should find something new to entertain me while feeding. Perhaps then Bella's face wouldn't keep popping up in opportune times. I searched the minds around me for inspiration. Can't believe he did this to me again. Just checked my account yesterday. How can it be empty? Damn, that is one hot piece of ass. Never been so full in my life. Can't believe what a catty bitch she is. I sighed. Boring, boring, boring. He looks so lonely. The thought wouldn't have caught my attention had my face not been attached to it. I stopped in my tracks, seeing myself through another's mind, walking alone, head down, my face showing my extraordinary boredom. For the first time that evening, I really looked around me, couples everywhere, groups of friends, all talking, laughing, holding hands as they made their way on foot through the city. I physically shook my head to clear my thoughts. God, what had gotten into me? Humans clung to one another in a desperate attempt to find meaning in their fleeting lives. I was above all that. Turning, I searched out the owner of the stray thought. I found the girl watching me with wide eyes, and I froze. With her dark brown hair, pale skin, and doe eyes, she looked remarkably like my Bella. I tried to smile. The girl blushed in response, and I could smell her then. She was fantastic. Not quite Bella's mouth-watering freesia flavor, but delectable to be sure. My smile widened. Perhaps I could use this girl to exorcise my Bella demons and get back to normal eating habits. It would be easy. Her mind told me she was attracted to me. The blood would make my eyes red again, but I had brown contacts for emergencies that I could wear with Bella. They were uncomfortable as hell, but I was thirsty. "Hello," I said gently, taking a step closer, slowly drawing her in. She blushed, but smiled. "Hi." "What's your name?" I asked, now close enough to trap her against the nearest wall if need be. "Mary," she stuttered, stunned by my interest. She had even less confidence than my Bella. Interesting. "Hello, Mary," I said. "I'm Edward." It's nice to meet you, Edward," she said conventionally. I chuckled. "Mary, would you like to do me a favor? Would you step into that alley with me?" I asked, gesturing to the nearby alley with a jerk of my head. "There it is," the scent of fear. Her heart pounded. I don't think I should." "I promise not to hurt you," I whispered, letting my breath drift over her face. It clouded her mind. "Please?" Okay," she agreed, letting me lead her away. In the darkness of the shadows I stopped her, trapping her with my body. Her heart rate spiked again, and the adrenaline flowed freely. "Don't be afraid," I purred into her ear. "Just close your eyes." Mary did as she was told, with a little sigh, and I let my lips drift towards her jugular. And the chaos in my mind was worse than ever. I wouldn't have done it if I thought I would regret it. I'd never wanted anyone like that before. I can't control myself with you. I don't want you to stay away. Feels like my number's been up for a while. It's like I'm less of a person to them, less of a woman. Thank you. I've never had the luxury of sleeping in. I wasn't expecting you to be the jealous type. That girl looked at you like a cat watches a bird. I just don't want to say goodbye to you yet. I prefer the original Mr. Darcy, thank you. That's really sweet. There's something I want to try. We need to wash you now, don't we? He makes me feel like a completely different person. I can tell he's good. I can just see it in his eyes." I jerked myself out of the onslaught of memories, my interactions with Bella flashing before my eyes. Damn it! "Are you all right?" Mary asked, her eyes full of concern. Jeez, I'd really gone off the deep end if a human was worried about me. I was going back in for the kill. Mind tricks be damned. At least Bella wasn't screaming at me to stop this time. "Is it a girl?" she asked. "What?" I stared at her incredulously. How could she possibly know? You said Bella. Look, if you love her, you should fight for her instead of trying to replace her or whatever this is. I gaped. It was all I could do. The human I was trying to kill was giving me love advice. This was absolutely absurd. Damn it! I growled as I stalked off into the shadows. Good luck, the girl cried after me. A stream of curses flew from my mouth as I made my way back to my car to get out of the damned city. I was furious. I wanted human blood. Rich, satisfying human blood. That I could drink animal blood was irrelevant. I didn't want animal blood. It wasn't the same. How did Bella Swan have so much power over me? She didn't even know what I was. I didn't answer to her, so why was it always her presence in my mind that stopped me? I slid into my car and started the engine. Taking off for the highway at full speed helped to calm my anger and clear my head. The purr of the engine was like an old friend. Maybe I was being too hard on myself. After all, humans had this problem too, didn't they? They'd get too close to the cow, and then they couldn't eat beef anymore. Spending so much time with Bella, it was to be expected that I would grow fond of her, like a pet perhaps. I just have to give up drinking from humans until I was no longer so close to one of them. Resigned, I made a stop in the wilderness on the way home. I tried a rabbit and a chipmunk, both horrid, before I came across a large stag. Felt full enough after that to last the next week at least. After burying the evidence, I went home and began to plot how I'd get Bella alone this week.